My name is Andrew Catanese. I'm an MFA candidate here at Stanford University. I work primarily in painting and sculpture. I'm here to speak to Sam van Aken, the creator of the Tree of 40 Fruit, a work which I've long admired, especially in relation to how it engages with conservation, ecology, grafting, and hybridity. Can you describe the experience of approaching the Tree of 40 Fruit, its surroundings, and the tree itself?
It's a single tree that grows 40 different varieties of stone fruit. So that's peaches, plums, apricots, nectarines, cherries, and because this is California, almonds. I had always been fascinated with the process of grafting, this idea that you can take two different plants and combine them together. Now, as I create the trees, I'll research all the varieties that originated or were historically grown in that region, work with local farmers, attempt to source those varieties, and then graft them onto the tree so that it becomes an agricultural history. Pretty much all of Silicon Valley was once apricot orchards. That entire history is disappearing. Making a work about conservation would be one thing, but making it of conservation is another.
It's in an interesting stage right now where it's still a really young tree.
Yeah.
And so there's sort of this anticipation in looking at it where I'm aware of what's going to happen, and then getting close up to it and looking at all of the branches, and I can still see the evidence of the grafts and where you're placing things. It's sort of like walking into an artist's studio and seeing the work being created.
Your description is so much better. I think a lot of it for me was I grew up on a farm, and going to art school, those were worlds apart, right? There is this fine art world being a very isolated practice that took place within museums and galleries, and I was really eager to work outside of that.
So maybe you can talk a little bit more about by the Stanford campus.
For me, the extraordinary thing in having the Tree of 40 Fruit in the Rodin Sculpture Garden is that the way that I've come to look at each of these fruit is that they are cultural objects, much like Rodin's work. They come with a history and a narrative and a context. In many ways, I've come to look at the Tree of 40 Fruit as its own museum. The tree changes tremendously throughout its lifetime. It changes from year to year. And this idea that I'm not necessarily sculpting it so much as it's sculpting itself, having generative works that exceed any type of expectation that I could have for them is really important.